Whoa.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Controllers and Couches. I am part B of the hosts.
And I'm Steph.
I am Chicken Metal Full.
Yeah. Nice to meet you, Chicken Metal Full.
Chicken Metal Full. Yes.
How you doing today, Chicken Metal Full?
Yeah. Getting there. Loaded up on painkillers, so that's fun. Yeah.
Love workplace. I love me some workplace injuries.
Yeah. So, fun and games. Yes. So, it's been a week. How are you? All good to go? Ready to rock and roll?
Oh, yeah. Excited to do this. We put it off until the latest possible moment as possible because I've been back in the lab and it's just been... I don't want to say immensely stressful, but it's been... Oh, sorry. Did I not pour enough?
All good. It's science.
I didn't want you to pour it all over your keyboard when you carried it.
Then we have T-board.
Okay.
It's a T-board.
Yeah, I've been back in the lab. And that's pretty much it.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Nothing major.
Any other updates?
Haven't gamed.
I broke a headset. Well, it wasn't really me. It just broke.
To be fair, you've had it for over 10 years.
Yeah, it's 11 years old. It's I got the original Astros, A40s.
Yeah.
Original A40s. So yeah, I got in contact with Astro, and they sent me a replacement.
I also want to point out it's not that we're poor. I was going to get you a new set for Christmas.
Yeah.
But then we made the executive decision of why would we spend $500 on a headset that it could potentially be obsolete in 9 months' time when the new consoles come out.
Yeah, so we figured we'd just wait. But these headphones have literally got me through like the
rough times, good times, the bad times.
Comfiest pair of headphones I've had. Now, obviously, I've had people say, "Oh, you're a sellout because you use Astro." Oh, there are better headphones out there.
But if you want a headset, you go for an Astro.
For me personally, yeah, I stick with them. That's my my go-to. I find them very comfortable. I've enjoyed them. Never had a problem. So
I must say that I really love the quality of the audio that comes out of them. But I'm sorry, I don't like headsets, whether they're bulky or light.
Yeah.
And I can't. They're too heavy. They feel like they're compressing my cervical region of my spinal cord, and I just get that neck pain, and it just hurts my ears and the top of my head. I'm more of a headphones, earbuds person.
Yeah. I'm definitely headset.
Yeah.
Definitely
well,
headset.
No hate. It's at the end of the day, whatever you need to listen to, whatever it is you want to listen to in high quality.
So, but it's cool because it has a mix amp as well, so you can switch between, game audio and vocal.
Musical.
So, so they sent me some replacement stuff for free. UPS expedited.
Mm-hmm.
So,
that must be nice because when I pay for overseas expedition and we're home, because some sellers don't let you send shit to your PO box that you pay for.
Yeah.
And you pay for this expedited bullshit, and then they pretend to have knocked on your door,
and
they run.
Yeah.
And then you have to go to the post office, and then the post attendant says to you, "Oh no, that didn't happen," and you go, "Actually, here's my doorbell cam."
The ones that crack me up are where the guy just walks up the stairs, throws it, presses the button, walks off.
Yeah, and then I go, "You fucked me!" How do they not know what's in there? It literally says fragile.
No, just like you've seen ones where, you watch it on the, internet and you see people literally go long 50-yard pass from the driveway.
And you know what pisses me off too, especially in Australia, is that if you buy something, for example, on Amazon and you elect to pay the extra $5 to whatever bucks it is to have it handled by FedEx, right?
Yeah.
So you pay the FedEx or whatever fee it is to have it, that thing or whatever website it is. You pay for an actual courier company. Why isn't that courier company the company that gives it to me?
Yeah.
Why do they give it to an Australia Post contractor when I've paid for a courier to deliver it to me where it's trackable up until the moment it's in my hand?
Yeah. It's So they've got to fix some things. And I mean, we've had perfect post, we've had perfect customer service, and then obviously it's the bell curve effect, where you get not so good customer service, not so good. I mean,
case in point yesterday, where we went to pay.
Yeah.
And this place that we frequent a lot suddenly decided that they want to surcharge people for using Pay Pass.
Yeah.
Is that the thing? So the Pay Wave and Pay Pass are two separate things, are they not?
Yeah.
Right.
They're separate. So
we've gone to pay and we've read it, and so if you pay with a savings account or a checking account, you don't have to pay the 1.5% surcharge that's specific to this one place. And so we've gone up there to pay, and then she's like, oh, with the surcharge that'll be blah blah blah, and I've gone, no, I'm sorry, I'm paying with a savings account. And she's like, oh, you're paying with savings, there's still a surcharge. And I've gone, no, your sign literally says, and it's not a credit account that I pay with, I don't have a credit account. And then she was like, oh, and just freaking tell people, because some people will pay. First off, what we're paying for wasn't worth the money we paid for to begin with, and let alone to pay an extra, you know. And there are so many elderly people that go there and pay that method, and they wouldn't think to just flip their card around and pay with the chip instead of the pass.
And the other thing that gets me too is, and it's only happened with, like, I think within the last probably 3 to 6 months, is the surcharges were primarily, you'd see them pop up on public holidays. You'd always see the signs.
For American Express.
Yeah, to cover penalty rates. I understand that for wage, increases and everything. But here's the thing. In hospitality, especially in Australia, the pay rate is going down. So that if the pay is decreasing, the surcharges are being factored into the normal everyday pricing, and also that's increasing.
Also, in Australian consumer law, it's illegal to have a handwritten sign like that.
It has to be,
an actual printed sign like they do at Aldi and everywhere else. You cannot hand write stuff like that, because I remember I did that once at Miller's way back in the day, because during the Christmas period a lot of people actually have that, because apparently American Express is the safest card to have. Yes, you get charged surcharge, but apparently you get refunded that if you're in a specific tier. I don't know how true this is now, but at least that's what it used to be back in the day. I'm talking maybe 9 years ago. And so they would refund that to you at the end of the year, given as a... is it a credit that they give you?
You'd think it'd be credit.
I think it's a credit they give you. And then so they would auto roll that over, and then so I had a sign that I put on the register saying, please be advised, there's I think surcharge. At that point it was 2% for Miller's. Yeah. And I said, please be advised that there's a 2% surcharge for Amazon Express purchases. And then my area supervisor the next day was like, who put this here? This is illegal, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So you can't have handwritten signs like that.
Now it's all changing. Like, people are just, if they can make an extra buck...
They will.
It's...
And you know what fucking pisses me off? You pointed it out to me yesterday. There's this really shitty turmeric pop-up stand. Not that I'm saying turmeric is shitty, but I'm saying the way that people sell it is yes, it is a quote-unquote superfood, but the way that people sell it and market it is really fucking shitty. And so they're trying to say that it cures... Someone had a toothache, someone had fibromyalgia, someone had what did they say, cancer or something like that. Yeah. Like they had a little thing. And then I've gone... I didn't go up to the stand, but you pointed out the woman was wearing a fake lab coat. Yeah. And that's not PC. No. To be wearing a lab coat out in public, outside of physical containment, but that's a different story. And then so I'm like, so where are they getting these statements from? It's people's fucking Facebook comments. Yeah. So people self-diagnose, no disrespect to people who actually have any of those diseases, disorders, problems, chronic illnesses. People who self-diagnose buy a fucking shot of turmeric for $80 and then are like, it took it away.
But it wasn't that at all.
No.
It's like, for instance, you see people who will go and go, well, I use it in, there's a health benefit, this can cure this, but then what's going to happen is you get an overload.
It worked so well for Belle Gibson, didn't it?
KOs. I mean, obviously you have, spices, like herbs and spices are going to be part of every culture.
Like saffron.
Saffron, yeah.
Like liquid, what do they call it? Powdered gold or something? Isn't that what they call it?
Golden spice.
Yeah.
Yeah, Indian saffron is essentially what turmeric is. But you get different spices that interact with each other, and certain spices increase the, I suppose, uptake of certain other spices.
Well, that's the thing. You're taking a compound in, and it has an effect on living tissue.
Yeah. So...
But you should be very, very careful how if you're on medication, how that sort of like plays in. You have to factor into your diet the things that can play around with your medication, because if you take, for example, on some people who take beta blockers, you can't have pomegranate because having the pomegranate, there's a compound enzyme in there that will like skyrocket your uptake.
And people these days really throw around antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties, and the superfoods, they really push that. And we were walking past that.
To have antioxidants work for your body, you need to have them when you're younger.
Yeah.
And you need to have them from the point at which you're like in your early adolescence to your 30s, 40s for it to have any effect, because that's what reactive oxygen species are.
Yeah.
They accumulate.
Yeah.
And it accumulates damage.
And
it's not I'm going to take one pill or one fucking, what do they call it? A blend shot that you can get at Boost.
Yeah, with the wheatgrass.
Yeah. It's not one shot that's going to kill you for life.
It's part of a healthy, diet, I suppose, a healthy eating plan. But you find that certain cultures have it as a staple, so they're used to this. It's ingrained. That's how they, that's their way of life, which is why it benefits them. You find people who jump on the bandwagon
later in life, and it doesn't work.
Later in life, it doesn't work as much. And seeing the whole, turmeric, curcumin, that sort of stuff, and people go, ooh, these, cure cancer, this, prostate cancer, pancreatic cancer, liver. And then you go, okay, hang on a second, well, let's back this up. It's not the fact that, they're taking these spices and everything. It's the fact that, say, okay, you've got someone who's an alcohol. Just for example, someone's an alcoholic. Okay, they're suffering liver damage. Okay, so I've been doing this, and I haven't had a drink for 6 months.
Oh,
okay.
Gee, cause, effect.
Cause, effect. So, and the other thing too, some people don't realise that when you consume alcohol, the process of getting rid of the alcohol and processing it and then, excreting it, you're extracting vitamins and minerals out of your body to do that. So you're depleting
your own body.
Yeah. So it's, a negative kind of knock-on effect. So just walking past and straight away. Now, obviously, this is just, observation, internal bias, but there are people out there who will, go past one of these little stands, or they'll see it on the internet and they'll buy it, and it will work for them.
Good for you.
Good for you. Good on you.
But I don't like how they sell it.
No.
As something that it cannot do.
I mean, just the key thing, like you said, when you say things, this cures cancer, off Facebook, no. Congrats. Okay, it may have worked, but congratulations, you've just come across as a charlatan. So
you worked in a cancer research lab.
Yeah.
Can you tell me, did you ever shake turmeric?
No, I never
cells?
ever shook, turmeric over mammalian cells. No, they never got my herb and spice mix.
Exactly, I didn't think so.
The only thing that I have done is gone heavy with the curcumin, the turmeric, whatever spices are in the cupboard.
Yeah, and then you fucked up my pasta bake.
Yeah, I fucked up a pasta bake. Well, anyway. No, I didn't put all I did was put mixed herbs in it this time.
You didn't put enough stringy cheese, and it tasted more like herbs than it did cheese.
Yeah, so I'm going to whack it back to the original, the one I did last time. I started, for everyone interested, go have a look at Terry Crews mac and cheese. I've, I tell you what.
He does one thing around the house.
I do one thing. Yes.
And we have to hear about it forever.
We do. And also, I get a parade from this. So, yeah. All
right, can we move on?
Sure.
We have a quiz to do today.
Quiz.
You're going to love it.
Awesome. Here we go.
Only a true potato snob will get 8 out of 11 on this quiz.
Yeah, because... Oh, and also, in case anyone was wondering... Sorry, I'm just loading it now. In case anyone was wondering why I haven't updated any gaming, because Call of Duty has been only updating since Wednesday. 60 gig install.
How's it going with the new modem?
The modem is good.
Alright, don't look at the modem. Get the quiz loaded. How long is it taking?
I don't know. It's not.
Alright, I'm going to get started.
It's not. This is funny when the internet does weird stuff. Okay, here we go. I've got
ready?
a black screen.
Yay.
Woo! Must be a Windows.
Maybe you should switch off IP Vanish. Yeah. It'll speed it up for your computer.
I think I've got a download in the background.
Well, how about you switch that off?
Windows. I can't switch. Well, I can, but you know, it's what I do.
All right, are we ready?
Ready to rock and roll.
Okay. Question number 1. What is this potato dish called? It looks like fluffy potatoes with, what is that? Green shit on there.
Parsley. No, spring onion.
No,
spring
that's
onion.
it. Potato mush.
Chives.
That's it. Mashed potatoes. Potato smash. Smashed potatoes.
See, here's the thing. Mashed potatoes and smashed potatoes are kind of the same thing.
Incorrect.
But the smashed potatoes are when like you're using a fork.
No.
No, you know how like you fluff them, like
That's
yeah.
Okay, all right. Just answer the question. Yeah. What is that?
Mashed potatoes.
Perfect. Maybe you could stop smashing your computer into the table.
Yes. Ooh. Okay.
What kind of potato dish is this? And for everyone playing along at home, it looks like one of them cylinders of potatoes that you chuck in the oven. Is it a potato nugget, a patatas bravas, a tater tot, or a tater tats?
I think in this case they're calling them tater tots.
Yep.
Yep. Tater tots.
Are you going to read a question?
Yes. What kind of potato dish is this?
Describe it first.
Okay. It's, the shredded, fluffy potato that's been, fried in a saucepan, So we can either have hash browns, hush puppies, skillet potatoes, potato shreds. Hashies.
What kind of potato dish is this? And it looks like a potato cake, but shredded. Is it a potato smash, latkes, Duchess potatoes, or pommes? I'm pretty sure it's latkes.
Doesn't look like a pom. I'm going to go... Oh, damn it. Yeah, go latkes. Yep, that is correct. What kind of potato is this? Essentially, think of like a hedgehog, but it's just like potato that's like sliced and then baked. So we have sliced back potatoes, potato nubbins, fingerling potatoes, Hasselback potatoes.
What do you reckon?
I think they're Hasselback.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they are too.
Yeah, Hasselback potatoes.
What kind of potato dish is this? And it's a bake tray, and it's got what looks like cream in there, potatoes on top. So by looking at it, you kind of know what it is. But it's either Lyonnaise potatoes au gratin, Duchess potatoes, or pomme soufflé. Pretty sure it's the gratin.
Yeah, it's a gratin.
I would call it scallop potatoes.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Yep.
Oof! I know this one.
Woo! What kind of potato dish is this? They look like little fluffy, caterpillars, but it's
pasta.
We have gnocchi. We have patatas bravas, also known as the brave potato. Patata tartar or potato nuggets.
Gnocchi. And
then we have, what kind of potato dish is this? We've got pomme soufflé, Duchess potatoes, potato swirls, and swirlies.
But you didn't even say what it was. It's like someone piped potato starch.
Yeah, so I'm going for pomme soufflés. But
I think they're Duchess potato. Yes! Yes!
It was the Duchess potatoes, yeah.
Yes. What kind of potato dish is this? And it looks like a Mediterranean pot that you put in the oven, and it's got like not dice, but like cut up potatoes with the skin on, with what looks like tzatziki or something on there.
Yeah, and some
herbs. So it can either be horchatas, Lyonnaise potatoes, vitelets, or
I think it's Lyonnaise potatoes.
I'm pretty sure it's Lyonnaise. No, it's patatas bravas.
Oh, okay. I'll put that down. Yes!
You can't cheat like that!
Haha!
We have to dock you 1 point at the end of this.
So, then we have, what kind of potato dish is this? Lyonnaise potatoes, Homer potatoes.
You didn't even describe what the potato looks like.
It looks like a pasta, like a potato bake, but it's sliced potatoes in a skillet or a pot, whatever you want to call it, and then they're baked. So we either have Lyonnaise potatoes, Homer potatoes, scallopinis, or rotatas.
I'm going to go Lyonnaise, but you go rotatas.
Are they scallopinis? Scalloped potatoes. I'm going to go scallopinis. Wrong. There we go. Lyonnaise. There we go. I'm even now. And lastly, what kind of potato is this? It's purple. Is it a Laura potatoes? A poi poi. Viteletois potatoes? Fingerling potatoes.
I'm going to go fingerling.
Fingerling. No. I was wrong. It was Vitello potatoes.
So what number did you get?
I got 9 out of 11.
So you actually got 8 out of 11.
Congrats, you know your way around spuds. Good for you, honey bear.
I'm a potato snob.
Yeah, I'm a potato snob.
9 out of 11.
Yeah.
I can't believe you fudged that data.
Yep, did it.
Alright, moving on to today's news topic. I have 4 things I want to discuss today, just in quick passing. Apparently, a Queensland doctor was jailed for $360,000 in fake Medicare claims, majority of which were from deceased patients.
Holy shit.
So this guy, Tony Bakari, he's 50 years old, and he was found guilty of obtaining financial advantage by deception after a 3-day trial in the district court in Melbourne. He lodged more than 4,000 false claims, where he said he provided services to patients who had died or on dates when he wasn't even in the country.
See, that's fudging data.
Yep, he's going to be eligible for parole after serving 20 months.
That's too lenient. That is way too lenient.
The judge, Tony Moynihan, said that he took into account that Bakari had not expressed remorse, but that he had cooperated with authorities.
Far out. What about the people who are doing this and actually getting away with it? That's pretty sick.
What I want to know is how he got away with it for so long.
Just didn't raise any flags.
But it should, because your Medicare system is attached to...
Maybe it was off... I don't know.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, someone's not paying attention. I don't know. It's got me, you know.
I don't know. So there's that.
How do you... That... And see, Medicare is one of those things that if they bust you, they fine you, you know.
Should be a lot more than a fine. It should be a lot more than 20 months.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something else. So apparently, Alabama passed... I didn't know about this until it came up on Facebook. But apparently, in June of 2019, child molesters in Alabama, a bill passed to be able to chemically castrate them.
Yeah, that's pretty intense.
So it was signed into law, essentially. So apparently 1 month before they said that they're going to be released.
Yeah.
1 month before they're released, they get chemically castrated.
Jeez.
And they make sure that they fit the bill for the chemical castration instead of the state.
Yep, no, they deserve it. I can think of worse punishments that people would dish out to them.
Could you imagine, like, not that it should be easy to be charged unlawful, like false imprisonment, right? But imagine if there was a case of false imprisonment and someone's whole life was ruined because of that. Like, I know people are going to say adoption is possible, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't know about that. Like, obviously it's old news, but, you know, something that is kind of disturbing in terms of food. Can you stop typing?
Sorry.
Something, because it's going to record that. That's what they're going to hear.
All the typing. They love the typing.
Apparently, 2 red roosters, one in Waypoint, the other in Forestfield in Perth, got shut down because people put a garbage bag in the boot of one of the Red Rooster courier hatchbacks and put cooked chickens in there. And if you have a look at the picture, there's no bag. The chickens are not in bags or anything like that. They're cooked straight off from the spit bar, straight into the boot, and driven to another location.
What?
Have a look at the pictures I sent you. They're in the link notes for you. And so apparently the day that this happened, it was 30 plus degrees, and someone actually snapped photos of it happening, and they reported it to 10 Daily. So this person called Mark Copley, who took the photos, he told 10 Daily the chooks were on the rotisserie skewers just being brought into the store. The boot was lined with cardboard, but nothing else. The chickens were not wrapped or refrigerated.
It sounds like a really... It sounds like something you do in GTA.
So apparently, Red Rooster made a statement and they said, following concerning matters being brought to our attention through a social media post, Red Rooster has made the decision to temporarily close the 2 restaurants, Waypoint and Forestfield, located in Western Australia. These stores will remain closed while detailed investigations are conducted, required actions are taken, and we are satisfied that the operating standards of these locations meet high expectations of our strict brand standards. So apparently if you go to their door, it's got the Red Rooster letterhead. It's like a A4 piece of paper that's flipped to landscape. It's got the Red Rooster logo at the top. That's just a JPEG drag over, and then underlined in bold and caps it says, due to unforeseen circumstances, this restaurant is closed until further notice. And then under that, in like one size smaller font, it's just bold, not underlined, we apologise for any inconvenience caused.
I'm just still looking at the photo going...
Apparently the city of Kalamunda is also looking into it because it's a breach of food safety.
I'm just looking at it still. It just... words like people, you need to see this photo. This
So describe it. It's a boot, like a Red Rooster courier car.
It's a red...
The boot is open and there are fucking roast chickens
in the boot.
You can see, like, it's actual chicken, roast chicken, no bags, no, like,
and
sealing.
The chicken at the top, literally, if you look at it, it looks like it's got 2 eyes and it's actually looking at the camera going...
Save me.
Save me.
But these are cooked chooks.
And the cardboard, Dave...
I know, right?
It's... Now, here's the thing. If they're doing this, how many times have they done it?
Yeah.
And what else are they doing?
Yeah. 110%. And if this guy hadn't taken a photo, you do realise this probably still would have been happening. Like, it could have been a once-off where they're close together. Maybe the towns are really close, and so one person's oven was down, so they were transporting chicken. Let me have a look if there's more information after this. Red Rooster, Perth. Like, I want to see if they've sussed out anything else.
Like, it's
apparently they reopened yesterday.
Oh. I wonder who got fired.
So I'm reading from the West, which is the West Australian. And so, like, can you do me a favour? Can you estimate how many chickens you can see there?
Well, quite easily. They've probably got about 15, 20 in the boot.
Red Rooster operational auditors completed an assessment of all facilities to ensure they met our high standards. All potentially impacted product was removed and disposed of, and all equipment and facilities were thoroughly cleaned and sanitised. All crew members in the affected stores attended a food safety retraining session. And the Red Rooster chief exec, Clint Alt, said, crew members in both restaurants will be offered continuity of employment under new management.
Oh.
So it was the managers that were doing it. And our suppliers will recommence the delivery of fresh produce.
Yeah. Wow.
So what I think is, my personal opinion, having worked in fast food chains, yes, it was McDonald's, but I think was that the two stores are close together. I'll bring it up on maps and have a look. But my theory is that one person's oven was down, or they didn't have enough chickens, so they went to transport them to another store.
Yeah.
But they did it very, very...
very dodgily.
Let's just Google Maps this. Sorry. I need to know, I want to know how close these two stores are. Red Rooster... is it? Waypoint. That's it. Red Rooster Waypoint. Red Rooster in Waypoint. Come on. You know what? Or do I have to search Waypoint? This is annoying. Oh, I guess while I wait for this. Because apparently there's a waypoint here. Waypoint WA. Come on. Apparently it's dead smack almost in the middle of WA. Oh, not in the middle, but a little lower down, the bottom third. It's dead smack in the middle of WA in terms of between the coast and the borders. So, come on, pal. I don't know why it's just not letting me find them. What was the other one called? Forest Field or something? What was the other store called? Forest Field. I can find Forest Field. Forest Field is right by their airport. Red Rooster. I don't know why this is taking me so long. I'm sorry. Waypoint. What's the second town called? Forest Field. Waypoint. Sorry. They're literally maybe 15 minutes drive away from each other.
Yeah, so that's what they've done. That's, yeah. They tried to do their own courier service.
Woo! Fantastic. Anyway, Hoozle, last story of the day. I read this actually this morning. This is news straight off the press. So, let me just paint a picture for you. You're a mum, right? You're part of a Facebook mum group. And there is a woman who posts on this group saying that, hi, I'm a photographer. Don't read the paper yet. Look at me.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm a photographer. I want to update my portfolio, so I'm offering free baby photo sessions.
Okay.
All right. So you go, okay, I would like to have some photos of my child professionally taken, plus that it's also for free. I'm going to contact this person. Well, a woman did that. She was drugged, and the woman who was trying to take the photos tried to kidnap her baby.
Wow. That escalated quickly.
Yeah. So apparently this woman, she has a lot of aliases. She's registered and living in a lot of towns. So there's the woman who actually has the baby that wanted the photos taken of her child. She called 911 and she said that she felt numb, drowsy, that she was unstable on her feet and that she was vomiting. And she said that she believed that she was drugged by this photographer person. So they went to her houses. She took selfies with the victim's baby. Well, I guess the baby is also a victim here, I'd like to point out, but this is just the article. And she was wiping her fingerprints off everything as she was leaving. So she went like 3 visits.
Jeez.
And on her 3rd visit, she offered the mother and her child cupcakes. And so the woman realised that like her keys had been stolen. She felt sick.
Yeah.
So she called 911. And so yeah. Just be careful, people.
That's some
Just be
messed up
careful.
shit right there.
So the thing with photography is not to disrespect anyone who is a photographer, because I imagine to be a actual proper practice photography is a lot of hard work, right? It takes a lot of time. But the thing with photography is, unless I'm misinformed, there isn't like a certificate of completion where you can say to someone, this is my license, this is my permit to take photos of you.
No.
You know what I mean? And unless you go into a studio, be very careful. And also be very careful of the studios because, not to fearmonger people, but there are some sickos that work or pay off.
Yeah.
Even the actual studios and the places in shopping centres to get access to baby photos, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, which is just fucking wrong.
Yeah. And also there's a scam. You know the ones that are the baby photos that are in shopping centres? They're a scam as well. So they say, oh, it's a free photo shoot. But what they don't tell you is if you want to get the pictures printed after the hour of getting a child's photos taken, and getting them naked right there in the middle of the shopping centre, you have to pay.
Yep.
And how many people would you say we've walked past having that conversation?
Lots. So, yeah.
Just be careful, people.
Yeah, beware.
Alrighty. Anything else you want to add before I jump into today?
Nope, that's clear.
Alright.
All good.
But you done scratching your Okay, so today we are talking about something you wanted me to cover for a while, and that is Project Stargate.
Stargate.
I'm not talking about the TV series.
Not Atlantis.
You like Atlantis?
Stargate Atlantis. Yeah, it's okay. But the original Stargate's the best.
The movie.
With Kurt Russell, yeah, it wasn't too bad. I enjoyed the original. Apparently they're remaking it.
Really? I heard that for Netflix.
Ugh.
So this week's episode has a little bit of everything I love. There's a bit of underlying psychology. There's some elements of the paranormal. And dumb governments wasting millions upon millions of dollars. So, to set the scene, once you're done organising yourself, the governments, particularly the URS, I almost said, what? The US believed up until recently, or so they say, in psychic abilities. They wanted to harness psychic abilities, especially because intelligence at the time, specifically about the Russians during the Cold War era, suggested that the Russians felt the same.
Russians.
So apparently, between 1969 and 1971, the CIA was concerned that the Soviet Union was training its citizens with psychic powers in the area of intelligence collection.
Ooh, they're trying to do, a spin-off of Wolfenstein.
Well, technically Wolfenstein would have been a spin-off of this because Cold War happened before Wolfenstein, but that's a different story.
True.
So, apparently in 1970, the Soviets' psychic powers research budget was 60 million rubles, which, if you convert that into Australian dollars in 1970, was $1.4 million. If I inflated that to today's money, Australian money, right, it would be $16.5 million.
That's a decent amount.
I think there's decent, and then there's whatever the hell that is. And then 5 years later, in 1975, they boosted their budget from 60 million rubles to 300 million rubles, right? So 300 million rubles, if you had just converted that in 1975 to an Australian dollar, was just a little over $7 million. But if you inflate it to today's dollar, that's a little over $54.3 million. What would you do with $54 million, first of all?
Eat a lot of rubles. Lots and lots of rubles.
No forethought, nothing.
Well, I would buy a cookie.
I'll buy a cookie shop.
Yeah, but I'd have to actually make the cookies.
No, you pay people to make the cookies for you.
Yes, just for me.
So this gets back to the CIA, and they become very obviously alarmed, and they start to think that the Russians must have come up with something to justify such a large expenditure, which, I mean, I don't blame them, but okay. So the CIA decide that they need to start putting their own citizens' money into funding this research for America, because it was, so obviously worth investigating, and it's one way for them to protect their nation. And can I just say, in my head, I just imagine someone from the USSR who knows that they're being listened to by the Americans just reporting the weirdest shit over the wire, just to throw the Americans off their tracks. And in my head, I'm like, maybe it wasn't even real at all. Just like they're trying to get the Americans back and the British back for, eat carrots. You can see in the dark.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want people to realise that they had put so much money in research and development into radar systems. So they were saying, we can see planes in the dark because we eat carrots.
Yeah.
And so all the enemy were like, let's fucking start eating carrots, upgrading our production of carrots. I think, personally, it was imagine if that was the case. The Russians were like, fuck these kids for a joke. Let's just fuck around with them.
Or started building igloos.
So apparently, they were, in 1972, the US analysts from the Defense Intelligence Agency, or the DIA, they issued a report warning that the Soviet Psi research, PSI, might eventually permit the adversaries to learn contents of secret documents, to divine the movements of troops and ships, to discern the location and purpose of military installations, or even mould the thoughts of American leaders, or presumably the reputed powers of psychokinesis, which is mind over matter, to possibly cause the instant death of any US official at a distance, or to remotely disable US military equipment of all types, including spacecraft.
Yeah, that's one way of getting post delivered. Whoops! From a distance. But imagine going into, a coffee shop and accidentally, and suddenly the fridge explodes out the back. Whoops! Sorry, my bad.
There's actually a skit where that has happened. I can't remember if it was in Japan or somewhere else, but it was for a show, and they pretended like the actress pretended like, so she was in a cafe or a restaurant, and she pretended like she had overloaded these powers, and so they had rigged tables to fly, chairs to fuck up, the lights to go. They started making her fucking climb up the wall. It was really creepy. Like, it's creepy if you don't know.
Oh, that's the one where she's at the back and then she
slides back and she starts levitating up the wall. Yeah, that skit in
and
quotation
people
marks.
losing their minds.
Yeah, and if that happened to me, even if it was at that point in time I hadn't processed it as being fake, I'm telling you right now, they would need to mop up the floor underneath whatever chair I was sitting on.
Yeah, it'd be game over.
I would lose executive functioning of my gastrointestinal system.
Oh, yeah.
But that's a different story. So apparently in 1972, the CIA decided they were going to give an initial study grant of $50,000. Can we talk about how much research could get done with a small grant of $50,000? Yeah. That would fund my PhD.
Yeah, it would.
So they decided, yes, let's give $50,000 to a California think tank, formerly known as the Stanford Research Institute, or SRI. So their job was to determine whether there was actually any validity of this alleged extrasensory perception, or ESP, which they decided to term remote viewing. If you have things to say, please say them, because otherwise I'm just going to... So the CIA decide, hey, let's start up multiple programs to start studying remote viewing, see if we can find any of our citizens with psychic abilities where they're able to perceive something that a normal, quote-unquote, normal person cannot, whether it be because it's obscured from view, very far away, or it happened at another point in time. So, in other words, they're trying to understand something using only their minds without the use of sight, hearing, touch, taste, smell, and in the absence of being given any information via person or device, or the simple use of logic.
Yeah.
So, according to declassified documents from the CIA, and may I point out that there are literally over 14,000 documents. We're talking hundreds of pages, thousands upon thousands of pages. I obviously didn't have a chance to read them all. But it's a trip. We're going to talk about some towards the end. But they believed that every person possesses this psychic power to some ability. However, some have it more developed than others, and it may be because it's a means of self-preservation. And it was thought that the talent is generally underdeveloped in the general population, but if it could be strengthened, it could be utilised successfully with correct training techniques.
Yeah.
So, they say that the use of remote viewing by the US government had given 3 benefits. It was a talent that required little action on behalf of the viewer. It had minimal associated costs, which I find very... we just said that they spent millions upon millions of dollars for bullshit, but that's a different story. They said it was minimal costs. And as far as the CIA knew, training someone to be a remote viewer could not be prevented or defended against. But you just told me that the Soviets you were worried about were influencing you.
Yeah.
So maybe the Soviets did develop mind control and made the Americans waste money in remote viewing. Boom! Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, look, it gets crazy. As we go down, follow me through the rabbit hole, because I'm telling you, it's going to go nuts. So, Stanford say, we think that even though it's in its infancy, we can get some shit a-stirring, if you will. So they start to call this program Scan8. Don't ask me why. So they decided, let's just start with a couple of seemingly psychic gifted individuals, one of which was Ingo Swann, who was a New York artist and also a Scientologist.
Oh, joy.
And one thing that I found out, I was very shocked to find out, is that apparently a lot of the people that they wanted to train as psychics were Scientologists.
There you go. Susceptible to mind control.
I believe in bullshit, but I'm not going to talk about that. To participate in the program, all trainees were required to have a 65% psychic accuracy rate. And I would like to point out that if I went to my boss in my place of work and said, "Soz boss, I only have a 65% accuracy rating of making sure my work gets done," she would say to me, "Pack your shit," very nicely.
And be gone.
"Pack your shit, there's the door."
Yeah.
65%.
That's not that great.
That's a C.
Yeah, that is a C.
C's make degrees.
Yep.
So all these participants said that they surpassed this 65% minimum threshold over the course of their training. I also found out that as I read through the declassified documents, they not only referred to it as extrasensory perception, or ESP, but also ESPA. And from what I can tell, what I deciphered, they actually put people in deprivation tanks.
Yeah.
So they would give them their cue, because they have to ask, a specific thing, and then they would put him, like in Daredevil, they put him in a tank, a sensory deprivation tank, and let him fucking
trip balls.
Astral project.
Yeah. Yeah, some serious ball tripping.
To focus, in quotation marks.
Oh, they were focusing all right.
Oh. So, to those in charge at the SRI and the CIA, things start to look quite promising. But as crazy as trying to get information on Russian or other targets with psychics may seem, the CIA has done other very odd and questionable things as well. Okay, Ultra. So, yeah, I guess we're shit. And I don't know how much shit is real regarding MK Ultra because I haven't researched it that much. But if what I hear is real, where they actually essentially kidnap people against their will and threaten to kill them, do you think that's real? About the MK Ultra bullshit? I don't know. But if indeed that is real, that's really creeps me the fuck out. Mm-hmm. So this one woman, her name is Nina Kulagina. She was part of the USSR, and she was in a tank regiment during World War II, which good for you. Not many women will be able to say that they were, at the time, what would have been a very male-dominated field. So good for you, Nina Kulagina. So she was allegedly studied by the Soviet scientists after she allegedly was able to move objects with her mind. This is sounding very Magneto, isn't it, to you?
Uh-huh.
So the reports came out of a 1970s lab experiment saying that she manipulated a frog with her mind and she was able to stop its heart beating. But on the other hand, you have a lot of people who also accused her of fraud. Allegedly, someone recorded footage of her completing these tasks. And when they review the footage, her powers of manipulation were merely just tricks. I was not able to find this footage to be able to tell you how indeed the tricks were so easily spotted. But if you can find that information for me, please let me know, because as you can tell, I'm quite invested.
Yeah.
So I also found out that during the Vietnam War, some troops took witching rods to attempt to try to divine the locations of Viet Cong tunnels. Do you know what witching rods are?
They're the ones where you try and find water.
And you go, woo, and if they cross the weird shit that they're pointing in a direction together.
Yeah.
Which, from my understanding, they use them also in paranormal investigations.
Yeah.
But from my understanding, they're very...
touch and go. Very...
If you get what I mean by touch and go. Like, they're very... It's a very influential... study, if you will. But what do you do? I'm not going to say it doesn't freak me out. Like, remember how we used to watch Paranormal Investigations Official on YouTube, and we watch, like, they have 40-minute episodes that go up at least once a week.
Yeah.
And, like, the weird coincidences that point up. For example, the guy, Colin, he was using them to see which grave the spirit belonged, like where his body was resting or her body was resting. And so it crossed, and then he's like, and they also had a spirit box, the audio thing, which in itself is quite questionable, because it also grabs audio footage, whether it be from radios or walkie-talkies and other radios and stuff. But at the same time, the walkie-talkie said across, and then he was wearing earrings of cross, like, because he's got his ears pierced, and he had earrings, but the earring was a cross, like a Jesus cross, and it was upside down, because he had worn it and he'd slipped upside down. And so people who were watching it were like, fuck, is the person upset because your cross on your earring is upside down and they think you're the Antichrist or some shit? But anyway, so I'm just saying, divining rods. I don't know why, but you signed up for detours when you subscribed to this podcast.
Yes, detours are fun. Always stop for snakes.
So apparently they pulled out these divining rods because the mission is a priority, troop morale was low, and the military decided, let's integrate this very unusual technique. If you're going to ask me, did it work? I think history will tell you that no, they were not very successful at finding the tunnels. And some may suggest that is why they lost the battle, but not the war.
Incursion.
Because Americans are back-to-back World War champs.
Back-to-back World War champs. And also they weren't used to guerrilla tactics. When you think about it, what the Viet Cong did was brilliant. The way they actually...
Look, I'm saying millions of people dying was justifiable. No. That's not what we're saying.
No.
We're not pro-war.
Oh, no, but what I'm saying is the way they defended their villages and everything...
was on another level.
Another level.
No one was ready.
So this isn't America. This isn't Vietnam. This isn't that. All I'm saying is the
establishment of
Vietnamese
those
people
techniques.
Protecting their villages. What they did was, really ingenious. The
war tactics,
the traps, the tricks, the tunnels. It's a lot of real mind games. So but here's the thing: we're not talking about Vietnam, but you look at the Vietnamese people, what they did during Vietnam. You had people who were targeted. People who were civilians,
the bad people, quote unquote, lived with the good people who ended up losing their lives.
Exactly. But you look at it, say for instance, flip it. Imagine if America and the Vietnamese people were on the same side and it was some other, invading force. With those kind of tactics,
It was something, like you said, that hadn't been seen before.
Exactly. So, in a way, it's always good to get all the facts and then see a bigger picture instead of just...
Yeah, but what I'm saying is a divining rod, darling, isn't going to help you find the tunnel.
No, but imagine if they had psychic soldiers who could go, yep, I know where they all are.
Someone somewhere would have had to have a map.
GPS?
In the 70s, yeah, wow.
Seagulls.
So the CIA decided
drones
that they were going to reach out to a television personality called Uri Geller because he had become famous by allegedly bending spoons with his mind.
Neo, the Matrix.
So the CIA say, let's get this dude and let's test his abilities.
Yeah, dude.
So they placed him in a room shielded from sight, sound, or electricity. I don't understand how these two things are linked. How do you go from I'm mind-bending a spoon to I want to pick a random word from the dictionary, I'm going to illustrate its meaning, and then tape it to a wall that's not in his room and see if you can figure it out.
Ghostbusters.
So, for example, say that they asked him to know the word fuse. The experimenter drew a firecracker, and then he sketched a drum, but he described it as a cylinder object that made a sound.
So, yeah, firecracker makes a sound. It's in a container.
Wow, not an explosion?
Makes a sound.
Okay. So then they used the word bunch. They presented him with a picture of 24 drawn grapes, and he drew 24 of them. Sorry, the picture in the other room was 24 drawn grapes. The word was bunch. And he drew 24 grapes in the bunch, specifically 24 numbers. So the picture that he didn't see was 24 grapes. They told him the word is bunch.
Yeah.
Figure it out. So he drew 24 grapes in a bunch, specifically the number 24.
Jeez.
However, when they pretty much tried to get him to draw a picture of a rabbit, he was unable to replicate anything similar. And obviously this wouldn't be his only failure, but it didn't stop the researchers in the initial experiments being convinced of his gift. As time tick-tocked, they later labelled him as a fraud. Apparently, as time went on, projects came and went, and it was supposedly effective when it was applied to sensitive matters of government security, such as the proposed 1977 Gondola Wish program that was thought up by the Army Assistant Chief of Staff for Intelligence, And the given purpose of this program was to train to train someone to collect sensitive intelligence using their psychic abilities to determine potential threats, weaknesses, and methods for defense. And so it became operational in 1978, and this is where the project was called Grill Flame. Sorry, my dyslexia today. So it's Project Grill Flame. They operated out of Fort Meade, Maryland, in some shacks on base.
Yeah.
So under the orders of Major General Edmund Thompson. From what I can tell, he actually genuinely believed in the power of these people, in the project, and in the prospect of undertaking remote viewing. He was simply sold by the idea of this. I went through and I found a quote where he said, "I never like to get into debates with skeptics, because if you don't believe the remote viewing was real, you hadn't done your homework."
All the homework.
So, at this time, the project was overseen by Lieutenant Frederick Holmes Atwater, and he was a self-reported psychic headhunter. Until, 1987. And
I know where this is going. Well, I'm not saying anything.
And so he was there with the understanding that it would be an inexpensive and passive undertaking. The Major General Albert Stubblebine III, he also had support from him, and he gained full control of the project, and he also very openly believed in the promise of remote viewing and what it could do for the CIA and more specifically America's intelligence. And because of this, Major General Albert Stubblebine III is the reason why it's believed that this project survived and was operational for as long as it was. So the army begins to wisen up, and the CIA were very heavily implying that the Project Flame Grill was both the army and CIA joint finance effort.
Sounds
if
like
you
they
get what I mean.
barbecued their budget.
I don't know, right? Apparently they called that because it looked like a campsite where they ran these projects. But so this is where, the CIA starts saying, no, Army, you can't pull out. You can't leave us here. We're jointly pursuing this venture of studying novel intelligence collection techniques, because this is going to help us identify capabilities and vulnerabilities that are associated with, paranormal phenomena, and it's going to have an impact on our military personnel and applications for us in the future. And you can read all of that in declassified documents. So, as I said, they worked out of Fort Meade in makeshift wooden barracks, specifically buildings 2560 and 2561. Apparently, they also tried to use the remote viewers, or psychics. They tried to use them to locate United States prisoners of war in Vietnam. In Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, but there were varying degrees of success. In one of the more promising sessions, it happened in September of 1979, where a Channel Security Council asked for information about a naval Soviet base, and so the remote viewers were given a sealed envelope containing a photograph of the base. And so one psychic said he was able to mentally access images of the building, and it was connected to the shoreline, and it smelt of industrial products. He described seeing a coffin-like weapon within the building, and that it had shucked-like fins. So surprisingly, a few months after the experiment, satellite imagery confirmed that the USSR had indeed built a ballistic missile submarine at the base of the Akula, which at the time translated from Russian meant shark. And something else I didn't know is, did you ever watch the movie Men Who Stare at Goats?
Yes.
I never watched it.
It is hilarious. It's got Ewan McGregor and
Jim Clooney. George Clooney.
George Clooney. It is hilarious. The bit that got me the most is essentially there's a part where they're they're in a room and he's staring at a goat. And he's just like, just literally sitting there, hands on his knees, staring at this goat. And then the goat just falls over and everyone loses their minds. But
the goat died of natural causes.
Just collapses. But the bit that's really, really funny is essentially they wanted to create operatives that could, use stealth and phasing and everything, and essentially
want to make super
soldiers. And there's this one bit where the guy, he's like priming himself up and he runs straight into the wall. Just like, I'm not giving any spoilers, you have to watch it, it's funny. But this guy just runs straight into the wall and knocks himself out.
That was based on Project Flame Grill.
Yeah. But it's just hilarious to the extent at which they go. But yeah, hilarious movie.
So apparently they also asked their psychics to attempt to locate the Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi and Manuel Noriega, the military dictator of Panama. However, we know that Gaddafi was found in 2011, so there was no involvement with this remote viewing psychic bullshit. But Noriega, he avoided capture by Project Flame Grill for 3 years, and he was discovered after being granted sanctuary at the Holy See's Embassy in Panama. So obviously there's no scientific rigor or scientific support to back up this remote viewing bullshit.
I wonder why.
And one thing that I found out and was kind of shocked by is they never told them, the psychics, whether they had any degree of success or not. So they pretty much came to them with the cue.
Yeah.
They spat whatever bullshit they spat. The people left the room and they never knew what came out of it.
Yeah.
So they say, being the directors in charge, said that they did it to keep up morale. To me, it would have a reverse effect. Because you'd think if you were making hits, they would come to you and you'd be getting more jobs. And they'd be like, good work, it's working, blah, blah, blah. So to me, if someone's not knocking on your door, if you're not getting more people coming to ask you, you know something's amiss here.
Absolutely.
But that's my own personal take on that matter. So time goes by and there's this journalist. His name is Jack Anderson. And it's very widely believed that the army were trying to pull out of this, right? So the theory is, and I have no evidence to back this up, but what I read was the theory is that this Jack Anderson got some information through an army whistleblower about these CIA-endorsed psychic experiments, and he wrote about them in April of 1984. If someone can please direct me to the article he wrote, that would be fantastic, because I spent like 5 hours looking for it, and I couldn't find it, and that's not an exaggeration. I found his obituary, and not his obituary, something else. I found like stuff about his life, but or was it an obituary? I can't even remember anymore. But I couldn't find this article. They made a reference to this article, but no one ever showed, like nothing showed the article. So, in 1984, the National Academy of Science, the National Research Council decided to give their opinion, and they did not have very nice things to say. So the army's funding was cut, and that did not stop the experiments being transferred somewhere else. So they codenamed them, I should say, Project Stargate. So Stargate, needing money for research, the US government decides to give them $20 million back then in 1980 something. They funded 40 personnel, 23 of which were the remote viewers or the psychics. So there's this physicist called Harold Puthoff and this other guy called Russell Targ, who's also from the Stanford Research Institute. And they tried to work very hard in making sure that this remote viewing was differentiated from clairvoyance, because clairvoyance at the time was seen as a very illegitimate skill.
Yeah.
So they used resources from the Institute of Noetic Science and the Parapsychology Foundation. And their paranormal investigations often focus on test subjects who was perceived to be possessing an innate talent for remote viewing. So as the CIA became interested in their work, their operation expanded to government official facilities, and then it was carried out in collaboration with the intelligence agency. So there was this one woman, her name's Rosemary Smith. She became a secretary, and she took part in the project that was at this point run within Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So she was one of these people. So she and two other psychics who had worked at Fort Meade for years. They were consulted by different agencies on a need-for-need basis. So one day someone, whether they be from the Navy, would walk in the door and say, look, I need you to access me some information about this. Or the next day the Air Force would come in and say, look, what can you provide me for this? So apparently they had a lot of what they called 8 martini successes. So what the idea was, for every success that they had, they downed 8 martinis to celebrate.
Jeez.
I don't understand, but okay. So apparently, I don't know if it was Rosemary, but apparently someone was able to narrow down that a Soviet bomber had crashed in the African jungle, and they only missed the coordinates by a few miles.
That's not too bad.
Because apparently satellite images in the CIA had failed to locate the bomber, so they went to, I'm pretty sure it was Rosemary, and they said, yo, tell us where this thing is, bomber is, and she was out by a few miles. I don't know if it was like north, south, east or west, because you know how that depends, it affects your longitude and stuff.
Yeah, longitude and latitude.
Yeah, I don't know which one it was that she was off by, but there you go. Apparently she drew maps and she pinpointed where this aircraft was. Apparently there was this other person that predicted a Soviet submarine with 20 missile launch tubes would be sent in 100 days. And then one Soviet submarine that matched this description was found 120 days later.
Interesting.
So then when asked about some Libyan chemicals, one psychic thought that a ship called either Patua or Portua would go from Tripoli to Libya with those Libyan chemicals in their cargo. However, a ship called Potato did sail that route. However, what it was carrying was never determined.
Yeah.
So if indeed it was right, like the name of the ship was wrong. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the psychics also tried to help determine underground structures and tunnels in Iraq. There are also rumours that they hinted at the location of Saddam Hussein. However, this has never been verified. So even if you see these things as successes, for example, Rosemary saying she's found the Soviet bomber in the middle of the African jungle, right?
Yeah.
There are a fuck ton of stuff-ups too. But they only report good things. Like, imagine if you're going to spew out 1,000 shit things, you're going to spew out some good shit too. Just happens statistically, like 0.05.
Big
right?
time.
And you don't know how much information they were feeding their remote viewers in the interim.
You have no idea.
So there's one again, they don't mention which one, but one psychic in 1974, he was asked to describe a Soviet airfield. He got minor details correct, but several key details wrong. And then so as Flaming Grill transitioned into Stargate, they tried to delve into more psychoenergetic kind of research, and this is where they try to seek to affect or communicate with a person, animal, or an object placed remotely. So for example, me living here in Australia, trying to access a gate in the US, trying to open it.
Yeah.
With the power of my mind.
I wonder if they had someone called Colonel Jack O'Neill.
I don't know that reference.
Stargate.
I haven't watched that except for that movie with the pyramids that you asked me to watch a couple of years ago. Apparently, a lot of the documents have been tampered with as well, whether they be like also the declassified stuff.
Yeah.
So, to me, that personally renders them untrustworthy. But you're gonna do what you're gonna do, right? So we already said that they never really told people the failed results. But as shit starts going downhill, they start having these failed results, and people on base were also like the actual people going out there who either had to action their bullshit, carry out missions based on their bullshit, started to alienate them. And Stubblebine decides, you know what, let's take this up a gear. He's full on into this. There's no pulling him back. He's just on another level. He becomes more and more fascinated. He starts thinking that there are even more rare and even more likely possibilities of this pseudoscience. So, you know, you do what you got to do when you have an office full of psychics, right? So he decided that he wanted to host a spoon bending party for all the officers at the Fort Meade base, apparently at one point in time, where alleged telekinetic and psychogeneticists would bend silverware into other shapes. And this, the whole time he's gunning that this superpower can be, you know, applied to destroy enemy machinery, you know, tanks, submarines, helicopters, aircraft, weaponry. So imagine that, like, it's like they're a showcase.
Yep. Someone brings a spork. Damn it.
But I don't understand, like, mind bending, a fork bending is completely different to having a psychic experience about someone in Libya.
Yeah, but
they're two different.
But you see, you got one that's passive and you got one that's aggressive. You can get ones for espionage and detail collecting. Then you got the other one who can go out,
no, I know,
crush and destroy.
No, but you're not listening to what I'm saying. They're saying that these psychics can do all of those things.
Yeah.
Which in theory, if you were blessed with this talent, you can't... Me reading your thoughts, having mind control over you, is completely different power to me being able to crush a helicopter out of the sky.
Yeah.
And as you, if you're listening, I'm not in any way, shape or form insinuating that that's what I'm doing. I'm just merely trying to say to you, they're completely different. On the spectrum of behaviour and on the spectrum of psychic abilities, they're different things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Bending a fork or bending any object is completely different to saying that I can mind control someone on the other side of the planet.
Exactly. That's, you know...
It's like saying that you can eat soup with a fork.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be cool?
Right? You can't... It doesn't have... It's not the same use.
No.
You can try, but they're two different powers. But anyway... So apparently they also asked these psychics to try to locate plutonium in North Korea in 1994. And a statistician found that the psychics who were working for the government had given correct information only 15% of the time, meaning that 85% of their details were wrong, meaning that their 65% success threshold rating was bullshit.
All bullshit.
So a psychologist then was asked to evaluate the findings, and they had little favourable things to say. So the American Institute for Research recommended the termination of the program in November of 1995. So the CIA decided that they would release a report and conclude that no applicable use had been found from these practices for intelligence operations. And in their press release, they also stated that the data provided by the program was inconclusive and more often than not was vague or irrelevant. And this whole thing would obviously raise so many concerns about leadership, whether it be the project or just how they were funded for so long. People questioned how they were able to get away with tampering the results so that the project could continue, because you can imagine when you work with a government agency, for example the CIA or especially the army, there is a lot of checks and balances. For example, if I was enlisted and they gave me a handgun with exactly 15 bullets and then I returned with 14 bullets, they would ask me my checks and balances about where I discharged that 15th bullet.
Yep.
Because everything has to be recorded.
Yep.
And people don't realise that. So how this got away, the money and no one doing the good bookkeeping, for lack of a better term, is very, very questionable.
Very, very questionable.
So when the Freedom of Information Act was kind of put out there, most of it was pertaining to obviously this Project Stargate, and therefore they released this information, or the CIA I should say. So you can access all of these documents if you feel so inclined. It's also theorized the US may not be done with research and development in terms of extrasensory perception activities. In 2014, a naval research launch group got $3.85 million to explore intuition, which was inspired by a number of incidents. Because apparently in 2006, there was this Staff Sergeant Martin Richburg, and he used his intuition to stop an improvised explosive device. There was a program manager called Joseph Cohn, and he, in a New York Times article, said that he possessed like a sixth sense or a spidey sense that alerted them to an impending attack or IED that would allow them to respond to a novel situation without consciously analysing the situation. So I get, like, you're trying to train people to think quickly off the mark, like A happens, I have to react with B. That makes sense. You know what I mean? That makes a lot more sense than me trying to fucking make a gate open in the US from where I'm sitting. So I get that. But I don't know. So other evaluators, who were two psychologists from the AIR, assessed potential intelligence gathering usefulness of remote viewing, and they concluded that the alleged psychic intelligence was of dubious value, and they lacked the concreteness and reliability necessary for it to be used as a basis for making decisions and taking action. And in their final report, they wrote that there was reason to suspect that in some well-publicised cases of dramatic hits, the remote viewers might have had substantially more background information than might otherwise have been apparent. So, for example, they were fed information, whether consciously or subconsciously, if someone had said something in passing, they would have used that to help their people find things, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So in reality, they fed the viewers information, so they didn't actually know what was going on at all. They just were told one thing, so they were in an intermediate party. So, like, for example, they had no idea about the missile in the naval shed. They were fed that by the boss, who then said, look, these guys are going to ask, this is what you're going to say. And you can imagine that would happen if you're all clenched down and buckled down because your project's going to be swept up from underneath you.
Yeah.
So that, to me, makes sense. So I also came across an article written by Andrew Griffin in 2017 for The Independent, and that he reported in one of the pages that were released, it lays out why the government wanted to use it, and the benefits included that it was passive and inexpensive, which we already talked about, and that there was no known defence. And it also went on to say that the organisation was looking to harness these powers to spy on people, to make changes to important objects, and that if it could be done, it would, the operatives would be far away, so they wouldn't actually be in danger of being identified or things like that, so they wouldn't become targets. And then that document also defines a lot of terms such as psychoenergetics, which is a mental process where a person can perceive, communicate, or change characteristics of something or someone that separate from the person, that is separate from the person in space or time. And they also defined telekinesis, and so all this stuff suggests that those in charge of the project, they thought that they did have some success, but they also noted the limits, and they said that the remote viewers should only be used to collect information in conjunction with other sources, and the information gained through remote viewing should not stand alone.
Yep.
So that doesn't sound believable, but what are you going to do? If you're interested, there is a Project Stargate subreddit, and it lists and links all 12,240 documents that were released.
Just some light reading.
I managed to get through, I think, 20 of them. I have some stuff if you want me to go through it. Hold on. Let me just zoom in because I took screenshots of some of the weird shit. So here's some interesting things that I found from the declassified documents that I managed to get through, right? So in the first document, LaBerge says that it's to be used as an R&D being research and development program rather than an intelligence program, and that they thought that they should see whether or not things do exist to the degree short of taking it out of the intelligence area. And LTGT said one of the problems is keeping track of the Russians. So they were fucking creeped out by the Russians. And then that Dr. LaBerge also said, I would believe that most of us would be on the skeptical side that there is not going to be support to do more.
Yeah.
So they're quite clear that, So I also found the original intelligence that the CIA intercepted from the Russians. Allegedly, this is it. So apparently there was this guy. His name was... what are we talking about? I can't even remember the names because they're Russian and it. But basically the idea is there was this guy, and late night on a snowy night, he rocks up to this inventor's house, and this inventor has a wife. And so the inventor, the guy's what did he say? That the inventor said that he saw some understandable force that was emanating from the guy that walked into his house, right? And he discovered in himself, this guy had discovered in himself the capacity to be a healer. So he would put his hands on somebody and he would be able to heal them. So the inventor connected this guy up to a tank circuit. He placed his finger under a microscope, and the guy said, this is the inventor, from the pores and channels of his skin, protuberances were fiercely billowing. Whole schools of amoebae were creeping from place to place, first merging together into one blazing bonfire and then splitting into pieces. Then the person whose finger they were looking at, the healer, takes his finger out, looks at it, doesn't see anything, shoves his finger back under the microscope, but the picture had changed radically. Now orange, violet, blue stars were scintillating, and the inventor goes, "You're upset. This has changed the electrical state of your organism, and the skin is a kind of mirror that reflects the internal bioelectric processes."
Yeah. Okay.
But wait, there's more. So there was this mechanic, and he was working in the Krasnodar hospital, and one evening after servicing a high-frequency current generator, he noticed that the discharge between his palm and the generator electrode was not at all the same as between his forearm and the same device. Could this be accidental? It would be well to register this strange phenomenon, for example, photograph. But how? Under bright illumination, the discharges would simply become invisible. It was then that the inventor decided to do without a camera. On the table lay an insulator, a blank sheet. So they've retracted something there, but you don't know what. And on it, there was an electrode consisting of a metal plate. A glass photographic plate lay on the electrode. Having stepped onto a rubber sheet and thereby insulating himself from the floor, he connected a second electrode to the back of his hand, the biological object, and pressed his palm against the photoemulsion. In case of an emergency, the inventor called a medical student and then threw the switch and connected himself to the high-frequency circuit.
Sounds like something out of, a Stanley Kubrick movie.
And then is this the last one? I promise. It's a bit of a blurb, but a study of the electrical characteristics of these points has been begun recently. But acupuncture therapy is an efficient healing method and has existed in China for several thousand years. In 1963, the Bulletin of the Academy of Medical Sciences of the Korean People's Democratic Republic published a paper on the Kenrak system. A scientific research team headed by Professor Kim Bon-han discovered a previously unknown substance called Kenrak in the human organism, a unified anatomical histological system distinguished both from the nervous system and from blood lymph vessels. Using luminescent microscopy, a successful investigation was made of the microstructure of the Kenrak system, consisting of so-called von Hahn, named after the scientist, corpuscles, and the von Hahn tubes which linked them. It is specifically the Kenrak system, according to the data of the Korean scientists, which is what connects the acupuncture points to the internal organs. This is the first point. The second point, Japanese scientists measured the electrical resistance.
Yeah.
So, this is just
weird.
Very,
very weird.
And some of the documents, like, I didn't want to go into them in the interest of time, but they would take notes during the person's sessions, so you can access a lot of them and their drawings and shit like that. So there's like a lot to unpack if that's what you're so inclined to do. Sorry, I have some other shit here.
It's just funny.
Like, there's the document called, I can't remember what it was called, but it was one of the first couple, and it goes through them talking about the building that we spoke about, the naval shed, and then there's other one talking about what's this shit here? How they were saying that they wanted to do an experiment to see whether subjects could recognize the features of a randomly composed face, so that way if there was a missing person or criminal, it would be easier for them to identify.
Yeah.
And, like, in theory, that sounds like a good thing, but But ultimately, like, there are thousands upon thousands of pages that we could talk about. What I've just read out to you is not even scratching the surface. It's just a really trippy place to be.
Yeah.
That's all I have for you today.
That's, that was pretty deep. Very, very deep. Just makes you laugh. Mind control. Imagine if I could use my, mind control abilities to make someone, make me a Big Mac from like 5, kilometres away.
You can. It's called Uber Eats.
Oh, yeah, true. Don't, I suppose, telepath and Uber at the same time.
I feel so bad for the people who were involved in being viewers, but also, could you imagine the workplace culture?
Pretty bad. It would be, you'd know what everyone was doing technically.
Technically, yeah.
Yeah.
But yep, that's all I have for you today.
Oh, that was cool.
Apologies if it was rambly and stuff.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
The part with the men who stare at goats was hilarious. Just men who stare at goats.
I never watched the movie.
Oh, it's funny. Yeah, everyone go watch Men Who Stare at Goats. While you're at it, watch
There's
Star
a book
Wars.
as well.
Yeah.
So do it. That's it from us this week. Have a fantastic week, everyone. And you shall hear from us next Sunday.
Yes. So, feel free to, if this is your first time visiting.
Give out our links. Let's talk. What are our links again?
Yeah.
You say what you were saying. If this is your first time listening.
Yeah. No, if this is your first time listening, thank you for listening. We've got a whole, range of things on board that you may find interesting.
We have a topic request form, so
yes.
if there's something specific you want us to cover,
have a crack at that.
Please enter your topic, give a little bit about yourself. You have the option to give us one of your social media handles so we can actually shout you out.
Exactly.
And also please provide me with your pronouns, whether it be he, him, she, her, they, them.
Yep.
So that way we can, because pronouns are important and we should normalise pronouns. That way I refer to you in the correct manner. What else do we have? We have a lot of links. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn. We also have our YouTube page. We have our Instagram, Controllers and Couches. We also have our Twitter. Our handle is controllerscou1. And also our email, controllersandcouches@gmail.com. He is FullMetalChicken. You can have a look at his builds and a lot of his Baby Yoda radio music videos.
I haven't been doing much lately just because I've got some other projects I'm working on at the moment. But there is...
It's a-coming.
But also too, a few people have sent me some very unhappy messages. I totally agree with what you're saying. I understand. At the end of the day, this is just a hobby. It does not pay me money.
And the job that pays you money makes you very, very tired.
So I do lots and lots of work which takes up time, and I really want to try and get all this stuff up. But some things just take a little bit longer, and some of the projects I want, they're downstream. So there's a lot of things in the pipeline. It's happening. I thank everyone who's stuck on board for the last few years.
Any Mahoozle, it's not a tribute to you. It's not your parade.
It's a chicken.
Thank you so much for listening, everyone. Please consider rating, subscribing, sharing us with your friends. And you'll hear from us next week.
Yes.
Bye, everyone.
Adios.
May the force be with you. And
Yes,
also
may
with
the force
you.
with you. Yaha. Yes.
Bye.
Bye. Signing off. Haha.